So Steve and I are business partners. We've known each other for 7-ish years now. We used to work on the same team together, and I would argue that him and I ran the team. I don't even know if I can argue that. We pretty much ran the team with someone else's money. It was glorious. We enjoyed it. But the team would be nothing without follow-up. And Steve, if there was ever a superpower that Steve had, it was in his follow-up. So we had leads coming from everywhere. You had Zillow, you had radio ads, you had open house leads, you name it. These leads just came all over the place. And Steve was religious about following up with them and just constantly connecting with them and keeping that relationship going. So that's what we're going to talk about here today. And then Steve, we can also do this depending on what anyone else wants to talk about, kind of panel style too. But I really would like you to touch on let's talk about the leads that you guys are following up with. So are we following up with open house leads?
Yeah.
Open house leads. What other kind of leads are we following up with? Zillow leads. Okay. We have Sphere as well, right? Our database, people who say they want to buy in 6 months, 12 months, whatever it may be. What other kind of leads are we following up with?
Cold calling.
Cold calling. So doing some circle dialing.
Yeah.
Okay. Anyone expires or anything like that? You treat them kind of simply. Okay. Okay. All right. So Steve, let's go ahead and get started. But you got open house, Zillow, Sphere, circle dialing, and a little bit of expired, which I know, kind of leaks into everything else as well.
Yeah.
As far as follow-up is concerned here.
I heard all that, and I would say that that's good that so many people are willing to. And sorry, I'm trying to get my headset to pair real quick at the same time. Willing to do prospecting based efforts to generate listings, right? I think that like tether to these headphones. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
All right, cool. I'm just very limited when I'm connected to my cord, and I was like having to lean over like this. It was horrible. I think that oftentimes people get a little confused and a little challenged on the difference between lead generation and lead follow-up, right? And I think it's really important. I'm going to kind of write on this board as well as we go along, because I think it's super important to understand and know that those are two totally different things, right? Does anyone remember the lead generation model from the Millionaire Real Estate Agent? Does everyone know what that is?
I think we should go over it.
Okay. So in a nutshell, actually, let me just get rid of this whole thing. You guys may or may not be able to see this, but I'll go ahead and write it really big. So in essence, in the Millionaire Real Estate Agent book, the red book, if you have not read it, I would actually start there. But the lead gen model, in essence, gives you a plan, basic plan to follow it to generate a specific amount of closings and or income, right? Meaning, is someone in the crowd there? What's a goal that you have? What would be a stretch goal next year to close units wise? I like units here in Sacramento. I know you guys like volume down there in the Bay Area. How many homes would be an awesome year next year if you could make that happen? Someone shout it out.
20. Yeah. I heard a very timid 20 in the back.
Okay, not everybody at once. Okay, so 20 closings, right? That's a good number in the Bay Area. I would say that's a good number, right? Like if you're selling those in Cupertino, Los Altos Hills, you're doing great. So in the MREA, and I would challenge each of you to do this yourself, right? In the MREA, they have a certain set of rules that apply no matter the market, no matter if it's a shift or interest rates are 8% or they're 3%, right? I will go into the numbers do kind of change as the market ebbs and flows. But in a nutshell, a lead generation model is very simple. I want to close 20 deals by the end of 2024. So we would work backwards from that. You know, if we want to close 20 deals, it's basically we need to get let's just call it 2 closings a month, okay? Let's just make your goal 24, whoever said that, so you could crush 4 extra closings, okay? So if you need 2 closings a month, how many appointments do you think you need to sign to get 2 closings a month? Someone wants to shout it out.
Yeah.
10.
Per week.
10? That's actually probably really accurate right now, whoever said that. Good job. 10 signed contracts, okay? Well, to get 10 signed contracts, how many appointments do you think you need to actually go on?
More than
20?
that.
Yeah, maybe even 3 times.
Even 3
I would say
times.
30.
30, okay? 30 appointments.
Yeah.
That's good. Now, to go on 30 appointments, how many appointments do you think you need to set? Like talk to the people on the phone, say, yes, I'm going to come meet you. How many more appointments do you need to set versus if you want to meet 30 appointments?
Lot more. I
Lot
don't know how
more
much.
than
Yeah.
that.
Let's just say 50, okay?
Yeah.
50 set. Got it? Now, to set 50 appointments, I know you're all probably looking at it like, oh my gosh, how do I do that, right? To set 50 appointments, now it starts to get interesting, right? Like this formula, I need to set 50 to meet 30, to sign 10, to close 2, okay? That's all after the fact, meaning that's when you get leads, right? You have those leads, you follow up those leads, you set appointments with those leads. The number that you really need to get to, because this looks very overwhelming, meaning how am I going to set 50 appointments in a month, right? Like how am I going to set 50 appointments a month? You need to break this down. This is only part of the lead generation model. The other part is to figure out how many calls, door knocks, open houses, expired calls, whatever your lead generation lever is. You need to figure out how many calls it takes you personally to get to an appointment, right? So for me, I would say on average, it takes around 20 phone calls to get 1 appointment. Okay. And so that is a high skill agent in today's market. You know, usually when I'm following up with our leads, it takes me about 20 calls per 1 appointment. Most of the agents on our team, it's usually averaging them 36 calls, 40 like contacts, right? Talking to 40 people to set an appointment. Got it? So let's just say to get your 50 appointments set, you need to, for every 1 appointment, you're going to talk to 20 people, right? How many people do you need to talk to set 50 appointments?
1,000.
1,000?
Yeah.
Okay. Now, that would be 1,000 contacts, okay? Hold with me, I'll bring it home. So let's do 1,000 divided by 22 working days, you know, in a month. What is that, about 20?
Good. 50.
15?
50, 50.
50.
Oh, okay. 50 contacts per day.
Right.
Keep in mind, that's a 21-day work month, okay?
Uh-huh.
All right. What the exercise I just took you through is the lead generation model, okay? this doesn't look exactly like Gary's lead gen model, but it's very similar. In the MREA, it's a 20 contact to 1 appointment. The conversion ratios, meaning to get 2 closings a month, I need to sign 10. It's actually about 50%, meaning we can change these numbers drastically if we want 2 closings, and that means I have to sign, instead of 10, I have to sign 4. And that means to sign 4, I really only need to go on 8 appointments, not 30, right?
Mhm.
And then to set, if I need to meet 8, I need to set 16. So that reduces everything by like 50%. Got it? So in my world, our goal is 20 contacts a day. Okay. That should be a very doable, achievable thing for most people if they're really focused in their lead generation hour, right? Meaning if you're spending like 3 to 4 hours a day doing your lead gen, lead follow-up, you should be able to talk to 20 people a day, which should result in 2 closings a month if you've done that for a long period of time. Now, it's not going to happen in 1 week, right? You don't start this and then a week later your like pipeline is filling up with people and you can see I'm going to close 2 a month. No, I would challenge you, this needs to be ran for a good 6, 12, 18 months. And after doing that for a consistent period of time, you will start to see that this really starts to add up. And I'm going to show you something. Is my screen sharing on your?
Yes, let me switch it back.
All right, let's
And
get
then-
it up to something big, like put
And
it on the
then what I-
big screen.
Also say, so we're gonna, the lead generation model, I think is very key for you building a foundation of where you're going, right? So every day Steve wakes up, everyone on the team wakes up knowing how many contacts they need to make and how many appointments they need to set by that so that they can hit their goals. If you don't have that, you wake up with if I get 5 today, that's great, then I'll go to lunch, we'll be good, see what goes on in the afternoon. So we're gonna have business planning clinic here on October 25th, and we're gonna be diving deep into these models and how to set this up for your 2024 and build that plan of execution that you need to go on. So what Steve just went over, we're gonna dive deep into that in the next 2 months or so. Go ahead, Steve, sorry.
All good. I'm going to show you something. I'm going to show you guys something like to prove this point. So just give me a second. Is this on a big screen or a?
They can see it.
Okay, they can. All right.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to go too into the weeds here, guys, but I'm going to show you something that that really proves this point. And I'm going to show you basically like in my CRM, like this is what we're doing on a daily basis. We track everything. I'm going to show you the real numbers so you can actually see this at work. And we train our agents all the time with this, and it's a hard thing to buy into this lead generation model when you haven't really been able to see, if you're not used to running your business in this way, meaning a very specific, consistent like path, meaning I need to talk to X number of people and having the confidence that if you do that, it should produce a set of results that are predictable, right? If you're not running your business that way and you haven't bought into that yet, it's hard to buy into that vision if you haven't actually seen the results and you don't know it to be true. And I guess the decision that we need to make as agents is if you're not running a predictable business, meaning you are not setting a target and then working backwards from that target with a specific plan to get you to that goal a year or 2 from now, you're just left to the market to kind of do what it does, right? And you're just left to your clients and the people around you to hopefully give you business, right? And I guess my point is I don't have that many friends and my sphere is not that big. So I couldn't hope that my my business would grow naturally and organically just by people sending me business, right? I needed to be much more specific. And when Gary showed me a path in the MREA, I thought that makes sense. If you look at every other business in the world, right, especially publicly traded companies, you guys are in the epicenter of some of the most wealthiest companies in the world. You know, they give something called guidance, right? Every year, every quarter, they give guidance on what next year's or what next quarter's revenue will look like. If someone came, you know, on CNBC for Apple and said, "Hey, we're not giving guidance next quarter. We're just going to go with it," right? You know, we know we're going to do good, but we have no guidance for next quarter because we're just confident. You know, people are going to buy iPhones and stuff, right? Like it's just going to happen naturally. What do you think would happen, right? There's no intentionality behind that. Well, if you look at our businesses, if we're not running them the same way, there's no intentionality, and we're just hoping that it's gonna go well, right? So I'm gonna show you this. This is this year, so January 1st through today, okay? And in our CRM, we use Brivity. You can also do this in Command as well. So this is not unique to Brivity. So far this year, our entire team has made 128,779 phone calls. Okay.
Question, how many people are in your team? How many team members?
That's like 8 people making phone calls. So of the 128,779 calls, we made contact with 12,161 people. Okay. Keep in mind, all of these calls are follow-up, because when a lead is in my CRM, and we make a call from the CRM, we've already got the lead somehow. Does that make sense? You guys follow that? This is not like making Mojo calls to expired listings, right? This is only follow-up calls. So when we look at like an important number to pay attention to is, of all of my calls that I make, or all of my door knocks, or all my open houses, of all of them, how many contacts do I get by doing that effort, right? So for us, we average around a 10% contact rate. So I know for sure, going back to the lead gen model, right? If I need to make 20 contacts to set one appointment, with that 10% number, I can figure out how many calls I have to make today to get that 20 contacts. Does that make sense? So if I make 100 calls and 10% of the time someone's going to answer, I should have 10 contacts in 100 calls. If I want 20 contacts, I know I need to make 200 calls a day. If I do that in 130, great. You know, if I set my one appointment, I'm done in 130. Got it? This is why it's important to run everything through a CRM, so you know what your results are, right? You can predict your future. Of the 12,000 people we've talked to, we set 411 appointments, okay? So if you look at that, and we're pretty good about putting every appointment in the CRM. So this might be a little inaccurate because sometimes they don't make it into the CRM. So 33% of the calls that we make contact on turn into an appointment. Are you following? It goes back to, someone said when we were doing the lead gen model, someone actually said it was probably around 30% of your calls should turn into an appointment. So you were right, right? I'm going to show you last year so you can see the difference and why it feels so hard right now, okay? So of the appointments set, we held 326 of those appointments. So we're averaging a much higher rate than 50% of the appointments we set, we keep. So about 80% of our appointments that we set, we go on, which is amazing, right? So think of that when you're building your lead generation model. If you're averaging about 50% conversion, that is a very safe bet. Like you set 8 appointments, you should keep 4. Following? Okay, so of the 326 appointments we held, we signed 117 of them. So 117 divided by 326, about 35% of our appointments are converting into a signed contract, which is dismal, in my opinion. You should do better than that, and you probably will. So of the signed contracts that we have, 92 have closed so far. We have another 14 pending. So about 80% of our signed contracts are turning into closings. Got it? Here's the important thing, guys. Like, this looks very confusing and like a lot of data. I think for me, what I've done a great job at is just getting down to, I know I need to make 20 contacts. All the stuff that pops up in my day, all the people that call me, all the sellers and buyers that need something, all my staff that need something, all that matters to me every day is that I make 20 contacts. And for my team members, all that matters for me, for them, is that they make 20 contacts. Got it? That's it. If you don't have a lot of leads, call the people in your database. If you don't have a big database, go host an open house and get 6 people to come in. That's 6 of your contacts. Figure out a way to make the balance, the other 14 contacts in that day. Okay, I'm going to go back to last year. So the big change this year has been, only 35% of our appointments have converted into signed contracts. What we're seeing right now, and this is how you crush listings, we've seen in a shift. Gary talks about the only thing that changes when the market is shifting is the numbers change. Your lead generation model changes, meaning you have to talk to far more people to get an appointment. There's less motivated people, right? Like, sellers can't move because their interest rates are low and whatever the case may be. So the results that we would have gotten last year with those same numbers that I just walked you through would have been substantially more, well, not substantially more, maybe 20, 30% more by sheer default, because there was more people able to move, right? And you could go back to 2022 and say it, or 2021 and say it was exceptionally higher amounts of business from the same activities, because there was just far more people who could actually move. So if we set 20 appointments, we would sign 18 of those and 18 would close, right? Instead of setting 20 appointments, you meet 15 of them and only 3 of them close or make the decision to move right now, right? So our numbers are a little skewed here because we weren't tracking that well from last year. But what I can say from last year to this year is all of our numbers for conversion have steadily declined as buyer and seller motivation has declined along with it, which means we have to do more activity and talk to more people to find the motivated who are ready, willing, and able to move. You could close you could get 2 closings a month with probably 15 contacts 2 years ago. Now it's probably taking 30 contacts or maybe even more. We might have to double our effort to get the same number of closings as we did 2 years ago. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Any questions around that? I didn't mean to go too deep into lead generation model philosophy or anything like that. We can go into lead follow-up.
I have a question.
Yes.
So, these 20 people that you need to talk to every day, does this include the people that you already fall in love with, or training new contacts every day?
Steve, when you are counting 20 contacts a day, are you keeping separate lead, like new lead generation and lead follow-up, or are you combining that into the same thing?
Yeah. I think it depends on where your business comes from and also how big your database is. You need to have a focus. If you don't have a big database or you don't have leads coming in consistently, I would say that your focus needs to be on adding leads to your database. So you would need to break that into two things, meaning I want to make 20 contacts out to generate one or two potential leads. If you have a decent sized database, those 20 contacts can be to the people you already have in your world, and it's going to help you generate leads. Does that make sense? And so if you don't have any leads coming in from marketing or open houses or whatever the case may be, you're going to want to set a goal every month to add a certain number of leads to your database that will do business in the future. So when I explain you need to make 20 contacts to set one appointment, right? In that same 20 to 30 contacts, you should generate one lead that says they want to do business in the future, or a referral from someone you're speaking with, right? So not only should you be able to set an appointment with someone that wants to potentially do business now, at the same time, you should be generating a lead that will do business in the future, and you can add them into your database.
And that makes sense. The other thing I would add is when you look at all the top teams across the board, top agents, it's the consistency of these contacts. You can mix and match whatever it may be, but the consistency of the contacts every day that's happening, and even switching it up. If it's follow-up this day, you have to have follow-up every day. You should have, we've had issues before with agents where they're just focused on new business every time. And then they're letting that business that they generated fall through the cracks because they're not doing the follow-up. So no matter what, it has to be a healthy mix that you're doing, and every day should consist of both. Especially if you're not generating the leads that you want to generate to yield the results that you want. So make sure you're doing both every day.
Yes. Yes. You know, I think it's important to, like, if you think about this, I use this analogy a lot. It's like, you know, you buy into a franchise, say like Chick-fil-A, right? It's like the hardest franchise to buy, right? It's so hard to get one. But like if you won a Chick-fil-A franchise, right? And you're going to put one on the corner right across the street from the office here in Cupertino, right? You're going to drop a Chick-fil-A right across the street. And you went to management and said, like, yeah, I'm going to drop my Chick-fil-A here, you know, and they ask you, what's your plan, right? Like, how are you going to drive customers? Well, you know, and your response is, well, my sign is out there, right? Like, it's Chick-fil-A, everyone knows what it is, and they're going to come. No business launches without an inherent focus on new customers, right? Especially if it's a new business or an unknown brand, right? So I would argue that your number one focus is to drive leads into your business. And even if you hit the epitome of success, whatever that is for you, that focus will never change, right? How you generate those new leads will change over and over. You're going to iterate because you know the market will dictate what works and what doesn't. You know, as you gain success and as you get a larger clientele base, they will reward you with more and more referrals, right? And maybe that's where you choose to focus getting your business in the future. But I would argue that your number one focus is to generate new leads and figure out ways to generate leads that will do business not today. Like that's if you're only focused on finding business that wants to do business today, you're hunting where everybody is hunting, right? I'm going to draw you. I don't know if you could see this, but I'll move the camera here in a second.
No, I'll see it.
Okay. So Eric, you're gonna know what this is. I'm gonna try to see. So do you guys know who Jason Abrams is?
I don't think this is a Jason Abrams heavy crowd, no.
No? Okay. So Jason Abrams is he's a guy with KW. Let me see how this looks. I'm gonna get this a little closer. Sorry, guys. And hopefully get rid of some of that glare. Okay, cool. Jason Abrams is the head of industry for Keller Williams International. Like, he ran a top team. Now he works for Gary. He draws this this analogy, and I think it's great. This is the life cycle of someone who buys and sells homes over their lifetime, right? If someone, and let's call this is where they move, okay? And in between, it's 7 to 10 years before they move again, okay? Following? Most people we know will move. It's statistically true that most people will move a total of 4 times in their lifetime on average. And on average, they move every 7 to 10 years. Some people will move way sooner and way more. Others will buy one home and that's it, right? So if you think about the life cycle of one of the people you come into contact with all the time, they're going through their life on this ladder up until the moment that they purchase, right? Right here could be they graduate college, right? They got their degree, they moved to Cupertino to come work for Apple or NVIDIA or whatever the case may be. They get the job, they start making the big bucks, they start getting stock options, then they get married, right? Somewhere in this life cycle. After they get married, now they have dual income, now they have a baby, right? Or let's say NVIDIA, I sold my NVIDIA stock like a year and a half ago and I got screwed because I lost like this huge run up, right? Maybe they were part of the NVIDIA run up and now they have $1 million in stock options. They're ready to have a baby and now they want to buy. Got it? So if you're only hunting, the majority of agents hunt right here, right? At the moment someone makes a decision to buy, they've made the emotional decision to buy, and they walk into the open house and they say, yes, I'm looking to buy because we're having a baby and I'm using my stock options. But somewhere in someone's database, that person has been living all throughout this whole life cycle of all these big moments in their life. And most agents, either they've gone out of business and they are no longer in the business, or they're just not following up and building ways to communicate with their people. Got it? If you're playing in this world where they are ready to make a decision and you're only waiting for people that come to you or finding them in that world, you're hunting with like 95% of the other agents out there. And it's very competitive. And when there are fewer transactions, it's ultra competitive, right? That's why it feels the way that it does. Well, if you were following up with those people all the way up to there, they never ever make it into anybody else's database, or you never risk losing that business because when they graduated, when they got married, right? When the baby's on the way. And that's a good indicator of they're going to buy soon, right? And you could be tailoring your calls and your follow-ups and any of your things that you do for your clients around those people, right? The flip side of that is, let's say you got lucky and you got that client and you did help them buy a home, right? Well, the 95% of agents look at that as like, okay, well, that's done. Right? They might send them a recipe card once a year or some, some mailer one time a year with their picture on it. Who knows, right? But if you're not following up on that down, like after they buy, all the things that happen, within the first year, they're probably going to do some updates. They're going to need some vendor referrals, right? After year 1, you can call them and give them a recommend to them to get an insurance reevaluation to make sure that they're not underinsured, right? Especially people who bought 2 or 3 years ago. could potentially be under or overinsured, that's a great way to call and touch base with them and check in. So most agents, the 95%, right after they buy, they forget about that person and stop following up with them, in hopes that in 7 to 10 years, when they're ready to go again, that they might call them. Make sense? Any
Yes.
questions around this?
Well, Steve, can you share like what do your touches look like for those people that you're doing right now?
Yeah, perfect question. So I consider anyone in this cycle right here, right? Meaning anywhere between year 0 and year 7, a lead. Got it? Like if someone says, oh, I'm not interested, they walk into your open house and they say, no, I'm not interested in buying, right? They're not interested right now, right? Everyone is a lead. Because if you think about the numbers, like there's, of 1 million people, around 50% will be homeowners, okay? And of that 50%, on average, every 7 years, someone in that group of 500,000 will sell, right? So if you just think of the law of averages, if you have a database of 100 people, someone in that group, 7 of them probably, are going to wind up moving this year. Yeah, right? So to keep it simple, I call clients 4 times a year. Not clients, but anybody in our database, okay? Now, this is different if it's a lead, meaning they said that they are going to move within a year. We'll talk about that in a second. But your entire database, all the people that live in your world, you should call them 4 times a year. You should have them on a monthly market update. You can do that through neighborhood nurtures in Command. You should also be setting people up on a listing alert for good deals in the area that they live in. The reason for that, and I didn't start doing that till recently, but the reason for that is there's a lot of people who would think about moving, but because of rates and all of that stuff, they're just kind of frozen. But I don't know about you, but I'm always looking at like super nice, clean houses. I'm like, dang, that's a great house, right? So adding them on a listing alert for properties you think might work for them, or asking them the question of, hey, if you could buy your dream home, what is that, right? If money was no object, okay? Or if you want to buy your dream home in 7 years, let's just start seeing what that looks like today, right? Let's set you up on a listing alert of what those dream homes look like, because that number one is sending them stuff branded to you by you automatically, so you don't have to do it. And you're giving them something that they want and they value. I would be getting everyone first and foremost to download your app. Number one, if you know them and you're in contact with them, get them to download your app. So a listing alert, I would send 1 mailer a month. I believe in mail. You could do this very inexpensively, guys. I would not send canned garbage. I'm adamant about sending things like of value. So I would not just send a random postcard that's automated. Anyone can do that. This is something I would spend a little time on, whether you produce your own newsletter or you send market updates of like what's going on in the market. People have a lot of fear right now that interest rates are paralyzing the market. So if you send a mailer that shows people like, hey, transactions are still happening, to contradict the negative news, I think that that's a good idea. Sending 1 mailer a month is highly advisable, and you can do that for pretty cheap right from the office, okay? This is that minimum, right? This doesn't cost very much money. You should be doing this, right? This is the bare minimum, I would say. Number 4 is I would be doing something called retargeting or adding people on social. Let's face it, like social media is a super important thing for many people. So everyone in your database, when you make your calls, I guess I could stop on what do you say 4 times a year, right? When you make your calls, there's 2 things that you can be doing that can easily help you make those calls so you actually make them. Number 1 is completing missing data from your CRM, okay? If you don't have their mailing address, if you don't have their email, if you don't have their kids' names, their birthdays, when you call, you are trying to complete someone's complete contact information. Got it? That makes it a simple call. Like, hey, Eric, it's Steve. Long time no talk, man. How you doing? I recognize that I don't have your address. I was trying to send you a card and I don't even have your address. I was calling to just check in and see if I can get your mailing address. Very simple, right? If you don't know them well, obviously you have to approach that a different way, right? But 4 times a year, you're trying to call and complete their contact information. What we do is we do events. So it makes everything else easy. Meaning, you know, every year we rent out a movie theater for clients and invite them to the movie theater. Okay, it costs me like $1,800, and we fill up the movie theater with clients. But the main reason we do those events is so 4 times a year I'm sending a mailer that says you're invited to our event, so I don't have to think of what to make, right? 4 times a year I'm calling clients with an invitation to something that's free and fun. Got it? So I don't have to think about what to ask or what to say. I'm just calling to offer something to the people in our database. And regarding social media and all of that, again, 4 times a year, we can put out an event and invite people to that. Email is also not dead. Once a month, I will send an email to our database. Really, it's twice a month. I'm doing an educational video to our entire database. There's like 35,000 people in it. They're usually under 3-minute videos answering a hot topic of what's in the news now. Meaning, is the market dead now that interest rates are 8%? Right? Some kind of catchy tagline based on the news, and then I'll give my general opinion of what's going on or answering a common question or whatever the case may be. That could also be something as simple as like an email newsletter with interesting topics. This is where you can get quite creative, right? But if this is your plan, right? This is your follow-up plan to everyone who's in your database. Meaning any leads, open houses, your vendors, other agent partners, everyone goes into this marketing strategy. This is the 36 touch from the Red Book. Got it? It's actually a 36 touch on steroids, but in general, I would say if you don't execute all these, you should pick 4 times a year call, right? And then do the automated stuff. Listing alerts, market reports. With that alone, you're going to have plenty of things to talk about, plenty of engagement from your clients. Make sense? Any questions around this? No?
Very good. Furiously taking notes.
Okay. Does someone want me to go any deeper on this real quick?
Steve, I think we'd like to hear kind of your philosophy on, the new relationships that we meet at an open house or something that came in from an internet lead, whatever it may be, to really establish rapport, build the relationship, and especially at that, the the top there, yes, the top of when they're the most motivated to buy or sell. Reality is we do have a lot of those people, and yes, there are a ton of other agents who are vying for that mind share. What are some of the things that you're saying or that you're doing to, you know, stick out from everyone else that you're the person to be working with?
Yeah, that's a good question. And all those agents are offering everything under the sun, including discounts and credits and home, right?
Yes.
All kinds of crazy stuff. So yeah, there's a lot of noise. This gets into I think that what's the best way for me to explain this? There's a couple of reasons why someone would hire you, right? First, and what's probably most common that I've been able to find, you know, in this business. Let me back up. I'm not like a extrovert, meaning I do not get lots of energy by communicating with people and getting in rapport and going to the bar and hanging out, having lunch. Like that does not give me energy, right? So when I'm in front of prospects or clients, like if you're like me and you don't have that that drive for connection and just naturally the ability to have fun and get enjoyment from meeting new people, you have to be able to turn that on and get good at that, because the number one reason that people hire people is because they like them. Got it? So it's important to keep that in mind. If I've lost so much business over the years from very inexperienced agents taking business from me because the prospect liked them. I can't tell you how frustrating it is when I call for feedback, like I lose a listing, right? And I just had it happen. We just lost like 6 listings over the last like 2 months. And I'll call and say like, hey, I would love feedback, you know, on how we can get better, right? And I asked the question, you know, what was being offered that I didn't offer, or can you help share with me why you made the decision? And if their response is like, well, I just really liked them, you know, I get quite aggressive and I say, okay, well, this is a business decision and you chose them because you like them better. And if I ever get their name and find out like their track record, I mean, I've lost listings to people who've sold 2 homes ever, right? And I have thousands of sales because they liked them, right? That's something that we need to keep in mind is like, there's no silver bullet to getting people to like you, okay? What I would say is the more prepared you are and the more you do the effort, the better you will get at getting people to know, like, and trust you, okay? So one of the things that helped me, rather than a script or a dialogue, because I'm not a good script guy, one thing that I know will change your business today is if you set up doing 30 open houses in 30 days. If you do that and you do that for the next month, I guarantee you the conversations that you have at the end of that month are going to be far better than at the beginning of that month. How I approach meeting new people at open houses is very simple. Who, by a show of hands, is making people sign in at their open house? Are there lots of hands up?
There should be. Deepak, do you not have people sign in at open houses? Oh, okay. We all have people. Okay. Yes.
Okay. So I think we do too, and I actually require it, right? COVID made that very simple, and it trained people that they were like forced to sign in legally. But I would say that one of the best ways that I found to engage people and build quick rapport is before the open house, I would do a quick deep dive on every property listed within like a 5 mile radius. Sometimes you can shrink that down if there's plenty of homes. And I would come to that open house prepared with all of those other homes. right? Meaning you know what's listed, you kind of generally know what their prices are, bedroom, bathroom count, because when you start asking questions to a prospect and they say, oh yeah, we've been looking in the neighborhood, we're not buying today, but we are really curious about this neighborhood, and they start you start asking them questions about that, I guarantee you that they know about those other homes. And if you don't, you're missing an opportunity to make suggestions to them and keep conversations going. The longer you can keep in conversation with a prospect, the better. And the best way to do that, to keep them engaged with you versus just trying to sign in and go and walk through the house, is to ask a lot of questions and a lot of open-ended questions. One of the first questions that I ask is, what has you stopping by today, right? Are you in the market to buy a house today or in the future? You're not asking them, are you looking to buy? You're actually forcing them to answer a question for you, which is, are you looking to buy today or in the future? Ben Kinney, who I'm sure many people have heard of, also has a great script for this. When people walk into his open houses, he'll say, hey, usually there's only 3 types of people that come into an open house. Someone that's looking to buy a house today, or someone that's looking to buy a house in the future, or you're thinking of selling your house and you're comparing this house to yours. Which one are you? Right? That way you're addressing right away and qualifying someone based on their needs. I'm a big proponent of getting every single person to sign in, because if we go back to what our focus is, which is growing our database and growing our business, there are no bad leads. We want to just grow a database as big as possible. So I would be forcing everyone to sign in, trying to get as much information as you can from them in that little window of time when they walk in. And then when they come back around to leave the open house, trying to re-engage them on thoughts, feedback about the open house itself. If you make a great impact with someone in that first little window when they walk into the house, you really get a 5-minute window to solidify the opportunity on an open house prospect that is in the market today, right? So if anything, when someone walks through the door is when you need to be your best, right? And you want to make an impression on them, and you want to be engaged and ask them lots and lots of questions. And any response that they give you, ask them another question to go deeper into whatever their response is, right? I would say another key point that has been successful for me is, outside of like doing the open houses and generating the leads, is what happens after that lead comes to your open house, and what does that follow-up strategy look like, right? For us, and I'll write this down, they come to the open house, right? They do the sign in, they view the house. It doesn't matter if they're a hot lead or a cold lead. We follow the same strategy on every single one of them, okay? So they go on an automated follow-up plan, and they get a text message. It is 2 hours after the open, okay? Number 2, there's a second text message that goes the next day in the morning at 8 a.m. It's a follow-up to that text. And the question, the first text 2 hours after they come to your open house, it's a super simple text message. I used to do all of this manually until technology allowed us to automate this, but the first text says, hi, prospect name, right? Hey, Eric, this is Steve from the open house. We met a few hours ago. Just so I can give my seller good feedback, can you share your feedback on the house on a scale of 1 to 10? That's it. It's not like, can we set up a meeting? It's not, are you still interested in buying? It's, please share feedback with me on a scale of 1 to 10 so that I can give that to my clients. Does anyone want to guess like what the response rate is to that? Like how many
20.
people respond to that text?
1 out of 4.
It's extremely high. It's like 70%. Yeah, 70% of people will respond to that text message because it's not asking them for anything. You're not pitching or selling them anything. You're simply asking for an open feedback. Where the big mistake is that people make is they don't respond to the response, right? The response is usually 7. That's it, right? They don't give anything other than a scale of 1 to 10. They say 7 or 6 or 9. There's nothing else in the text, right? It's just a number. So the key is you're just trying to keep them engaged in who you are and remember you. That's all. That's it, right? Because they might go look at 4 or 5 other open houses after they visit your open house, and they have now 4 or 5 other agents who may, probably not, but may follow up with them, right? Now they're in 4 or 5 other databases other than yours. Got it? So that text is designed, if they say 7, I'll text back and say, great, what would make that a 10 for you, right? Or you can say things like, well, what was that house lacking that you're looking for in your next home? That's a very pointed question to find out, are these people really motivated to buy like right now, right? You're using that as a platform to get into conversation outside of the open house, ask more questions, qualify them deeper, earn their trust, and then work them towards setting up an appointment. Does that make sense? Any questions around this? Okay, so we follow.
We have one question.
Yeah.
What is the percentage of like you don't send that initial text a couple of hours later? Like say it's like the next day or 2 days later. What is the percentage of response after that?
Bad. Don't do that. Bad. If you're not going to send them, if you're not going to follow up same day, you may as well cut out the open house altogether. I know that sounds harsh, but if the conversion is so bad, if you don't make contact with them in that first day, you may as well just save your time and not do the open house and do something different for your lead gen. Because hear me out here, most people don't just go to one open house, right? And this gets back to this philosophy of like, there are no new leads, meaning like, if you think about anyone who's in the market to buy a home, okay, if they're actually at the top of that arc, right, meaning they are buying a home, they've been pre-approved, or they're talking to a lender, or they're going to open houses, like they are so bombarded, they're in like 30 databases, right? Like they've filled out a mortgage application online, their information got sold. Now they're working with like Rocket Mortgage, and Rocket referred them to an agent partner. They Google neighborhoods and land on someone's website and fill out a form to see a property. Like they are getting bombarded from many agents and not just you. So if you are the first one and the most consistent and the most persistent at wanting to learn more about somebody, I promise you that simple effort of texting like however many people came to your open house, 5 people, when you get done with your open and you just, even if you have to manually do it, you just pull them up and text them right in your car, that effort is highly rewarded, okay? I would say, if you're going to wait 2 days, you've waited too long. So someone else probably got to them before you. Now, will you still get closings for open houses? For sure. But I think that if you just add in these super simple little steps and you immediately start following up with someone, I promise you it will change dramatically how effective your open houses are. So all of our leads, like open house leads, get over the course of 2 weeks, every new lead gets 21 contact attempts over the course of 21 days. Okay. how that looks on an open house lead, because how that lead comes in, it could be like internet lead, Zillow lead, open house. They're all going to have different like messages going to them based on how we found them. But the number of times we're going to reach out to them does not change. So if someone comes to your open house, they're a new lead to you, right? Like they're brand new. You might find a little bit of info at the open house, like what their timeline is or what their budget is. But in all essence, they're a new lead and you need to follow up with them so you can get more info and you can qualify them. So I would treat every lead that you generate at an open house as a brand new lead that you are trying to figure out, are they a hot lead? Are they a nurture, which means 6 months to a year? Or are they a watch? Are they a year plus? What are they, so that you can categorize them in your CRM and follow up with them in a different way, right? So what that looks like is there's a text message that goes out day one. There's a text message the next day if they didn't respond, okay? Meaning if they didn't respond to the 1 of 10, there's a text that goes out in the morning. There's another text that goes out same day, the next day in the afternoon if they didn't respond. That text can be something like, hey, I didn't receive any responses from you to my other 2 messages. Do I have the right number, right? And a lot of times they'll say no, you know, someone put a bogus number or whatever. You want to identify, is this a legit number or are they just all out altogether, right? I will also call them all the next day after the open house. Even if that's on a Saturday, I recommend calling them on a Sunday. Many of them respond to that first text, so you don't need to call them because you're texting them and you're in communication. Anybody that you didn't speak to via text, you should be trying to call and leaving a voicemail. And the voicemail can be very simple. Hey, Eric, this is Steve. We met at the open house yesterday. Thank you so much for coming by. I sent you a text message. I'm looking for feedback from my seller. I want to be very thorough. You know, on a scale of 1 to 10, how did you enjoy the house? What feedback would you give us? Here's my phone number, 123, you know, blah, blah, blah. Thank you so much. We'll talk to you soon. Guys, the reason this is super important is not only like, are you asking them for feedback and like following up with these leads, but you are setting the tempo and the precedence of what kind of agent and business owner you are, right? Meaning, you are aggressive, you are thorough, right? You remember them, you are engaged in them and asking them questions. When they go meet other agents don't do this stuff. Got it? Other agents are playing at the top of the arc. They're just waiting for someone to say, yeah, I want to buy a house with you, right? So the more we are aggressive and proactive in following up with prospects, the people want to be wanted, right? Especially in your market, these buyers and sellers want to be wanted, so much so they ask for rebates and stuff all the time, right? But you know, the more engaged you are and the more aggressive you are, the more business you will get. I promise you. I have yet to lose business over following up too much. I have lost millions of dollars in business for not following up enough. That should be enough evidence for you to say, okay, let's add a few more steps into our process.
Okay, final questions or anything else? Yeah, really quickly you want Steve to touch on as far as follow-up. It's like everything in real estate, it's simple, not easy, but he's not telling you anything you haven't already heard before. It's the consistency in which you're following up that's going to be key. It's being top of mind. Sometimes what we're saying isn't just as important. So anything, I have a question if you guys do not have any questions that you want to ask. Anyone?
Yeah.
Do the Bueller thing. All right, so Steve, what is something, as far as your mindset is concerned, with someone who has told you, you know, they're 0 to 6 months out, like in that time frame, what is your mindset when you're talking to them to essentially build yourself closer to being that person, you know, that they choose? Like when you're getting on the phone with them and you don't really have all that rapport, what is your mindset and what are you trying to discuss when you're on the phone with them? Because you don't just wanna, you know, push. Are you gonna buy today, sell today? So what's your mindset when you're going into those conversations?
Yeah, meaning, let's say, you know, let's make it like a real situation. We did an open house, there's a lead there, right? We call them the next day or a couple days later, and they say, no, or yeah, I'm interested, we're kind of hunting, but I'm not gonna move for 6 to 12 months, we're still saving money for a down payment, something like that.
Sure.
Okay, so I am always on every call, on every single call, I am always I am trying to make an impact on that client that I know what I'm doing, right? Like I try to make an impact on every client that like I am at the elite level of real estate agents and I know what I'm talking about. So one of the questions that you can ask somebody is, you know, hey, I know you're planning on moving in 6 to 12 months. What keeps you up at night when you think about this move, right? What keeps you up at night or concerns you about this move? And that will open them up to sharing with you what maybe some of their nerves are, what concerns they might have. Another thing that I always try to do is say, hey, I understand that you're not looking to buy for 6 to 12 months, but what if rates dump, you know, or drop a point and a half in the next 3 months? If you could swing it and could afford it, and by doing so, you were able to save money, is there something holding you back from buying today? Because you want to get right down to the motivation and the why behind someone not wanting to move for 6 to 12 months. There are very few instances of why someone would wait a year to buy. Some of those instances might be I'm retiring, or I got a new job and I need the employment history, or I'm getting a bonus at the end of the year. You want to uncover the why, because that will share with you the legitimacy of their waiting a year. Oftentimes what people say is, yeah, we're thinking about buying in a year, but that's not what they mean. They just mean in the future. The future can mean 30 days from now or 6 months from now. It's our job as agents to uncover that for them so that we know how often to follow up with that person. And I'll throw little things in like, hey, I send out every month. This goes back to why we do the 36 touch. Every month I send bi-weekly educational emails to you, right? So be on the lookout for that. Can I get the best email for you? And twice a month, I answer the most common questions from buyers and sellers out there, and it's all relevant to the questions I'm receiving today. Most people are going to say yes to that, right? Like, especially if they're considering buying a home in a year. I'll also send them to like where those videos are housed, which there's a ton of educational videos there. So I will always want to give them something that will keep them looking out for communication from me, meaning they see an email from me, they look at it, right? Because and then I will also always set up the next call with them. Don't ever hang up the phone with someone who says they're going to buy in a year without saying, well, great, thank you so much for sharing all this information with me. I'm going to go ahead and follow up with you in 4 to 6 months just to check in and see where you're at in that process. And by the way, if anything changes in the market, I will absolutely call you and let you know. That way you're really informed on what's going on. I won't wait 6 months to call them. Got it? I will call them every month to check in and update them, because I promise you, people who say they're a year out are not a year out. They will buy in 30 days, 60 days, 90 days. They just don't trust you enough yet to tell you their true motivation. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So like the reason you have all those layers of communication, mail, email, educational content, is so that you have something to, when you call somebody who's a year away, you have something to talk about. Because if you're just calling them every other month and they're a year out and you're saying, are you ready to buy? Are you ready to buy? Are you ready to buy? You don't really earn that business, right? They get frustrated that you're calling them. You're not giving them anything of value. You're not engaged in what they have going on. So every conversation, I'm looking for little cues of like, do they have a baby on the way? Did they get a promotion? What's coming up in their future that I can call them about in the future and ask more questions. So they might reference they're going on a vacation on the phone. So they're not going to be back from vacation in a month and a half. In the task that I set for myself 2 months from now, I'm surely going to put call and follow up on the Hawaii vacation. Make sure you ask them questions about Hawaii, right? So when I call them in 2 months and I say, oh, hey, remember we spoke about 2 months ago, how was the trip to Hawaii? Every time you do little things like that, I can't express to you what that means to a prospect who's not your client yet, right? Like if you think about your engagements with businesses in the world, there's no businesses that do that, right? I spent an hour on the phone with Bank of America today. I've been a Bank of America client for like 10 years. I have a lot of money with them, like 8 accounts, but they didn't call me by my name. They didn't know the last time I called in, right? Like there's no one that says, I'll follow up with you on this date and then actually does it on that date and remembers what you talked about last time you spoke 2 months ago. Each one of those things are helping you build the credibility to earn that business in the future.
All right, we're 15 minutes over. Thank you, Steve.
That's all right.
Appreciate you.
I'm sorry I messed up the date. I apologize that.
All good. But you promised them you'll be here in person next time so they can see your smiley face.
Absolutely. I will do that.
All right, thank
Thanks,
you,
guys.
Steve.
Yeah, thanks for putting this together, Eric.
All right.
All right, bye-bye. Stop. Leave.